All right, welcome back to the final part of DIY part 4, or I should say the final session of part 4, where we've been going over the primary function of force fetch. Today we're doing the capstone of force fetch is to make sure that we are doing force fetch and a proper delivery to hand and force mechanisms associated with the water. We want Aries to understand the rules that you learned in the shop, the rules that he learned, outside in the driveway, the rules over in the grass still apply right here at the water. And if you are doing this with your dog and you have not done the early water introduction, you need to do that first. You do not want the dog's first exposure with water to be associated with force, right? If your dog does not know how to swim, if your dog has not been, playfully jumping in the water with other dogs, if your dog has not been attempting to retrieve in the water, do not start with force in the water. We want them to experience this after they already know something about the water. It is critical that they have some exposure to the water before we force them to the water. Now, a couple of things that really help you out here. First off, if you do this in the same spot where you did the introductions, that will help. You might notice that we're in the exact same spot, the exact same pond, the exact same corner of the pond where we did this. Also, it's very helpful if you're using a pond where you know what's in the water, right? You really have to be considerate when you are doing dog training in the water that you know what's in the water. There's not logs or rocks or something that could harm your dog. You have to know that. In particular, this pond, I actually dug it myself, so I know that there's a nice gradual slope. It's designed for dog training. So keep that in mind. Also, this is very, you have to really consider the weather, right? Today I'm out here in a t-shirt and wearing Crocs. And if you look around at the background, you can tell it's obviously still winter. Everything is dead. So we haven't quite made it back to spring yet. At this point, so Aries was a spring puppy. He was born right at the end of March, which is actually a great time because then it was warm. Summer we could do some puppy introductions. So he's 10, 11 months old at this point, something like that. So we haven't made it a full year, but we're kind of getting into that warmer time of year is coming. So I can be out here when the weather is nice. So you don't want to do this when the weather is freezing cold. You don't want to do this if your dog hasn't been exposed. And you don't want to do this if all the other steps aren't going really well. Like we don't force the water unless things are going well, because we do not want the dog to have a bad experience in the water. And we never make the first time that they feel e-collar pressure is never in the water, right? Because we don't want them to think that discomfort came from the water, right? We want them to have good experiences in the water. Okay, so what I'm gonna do to get him started here is the same thing we've always done, is give him some fun bumpers. And I'm using the exact same bumper we've been using. And the thing to do here is I've got my mat set up just like we have at all the other places, right? So I can set him on the mat, good boy. And I'm gonna do some tosses right here on the bank, right? We're not even gonna get in the water yet. Now, obviously Aries is comfortable in the water. He's been introduced to the water properly, so this isn't any big deal, right? So I'm gonna just give him some tosses over here. Make sure that remind him here, heel, sit, give, and he wants to get in the water. See how he's on my left side wanting to go in? He wants to go in. He's like, why'd you throw it over there, boss? Okay. Now, it's also a really good idea to give them some in the shallows where they do not swim first. All right, so I know that my pond goes deep this way, so I'm going to throw him a bumper down the shore here, really easy. So we're just going to give it a toss. I know that's wading water, so he gets wet here. Heel, sit, give, catch, sit, give, good. Now there was an example where I reached for the bumper and it's wet and slippery and I dropped it. But we can recover by telling him to fetch even though it was dropped right there. It wasn't really anybody's fault, it just slipped, right? So once we've got the dog confident in the water, what we're going to do is we're going to increase the depth that he's going to swim in. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper. In fact, you can see I've got some decoys in the water. If you look carefully, you can actually see I've still got the ice eater in the water. I haven't pulled it out of the pond yet. So I'm going to go just a little bit deeper so that he gets good and wet this time. And we're going to use the same mat. Also, the mat is very close to the edge of the water. I've got it very close. That makes it easy for him. He doesn't have to carry the bumper very far out before he gets to his spot. All right, heel, sit, good. Aries. Good boy, Aries, good boy. And you should see your dog bounce like that, a little hop and a jump, that's great. Not every dog does, that's okay. Fetch. Nope, fetch. Here. Heel. Sit. Yeah. Now, there's a perfect example, and a very common problem. Dogs will come out of the water, shake, drop the bumper. We simply told him to fetch, gave him a little correction, and he came, picked it up, and brought it straight to us, right? So, that's how we can fix that problem, right? So, as we go on further, I'm going to apply more and more pressure to keep him from doing that drop. All right, but let's give him one more. This one should help him out because he's going to go out and the path is going to be back to me. Attaboy, Aries, here. Except he's got a cigar hold, so that's not good. We'll see how this plays out. Right here. 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 Heel. Oh, fetch. Heel. Yeah. Good. Okay. Good boy. Right. All right. So that's a good start. Now what we're going to do is we're going to increase the difficulty. And pull the mat back 5 yards off the water. Heel. Sit. Aries. Like I said, you see how he jumps in there? That would be very dangerous if there were, logs or stumps or rocks in the water, because they're exposing their whole belly to that area. You gotta know what's in the water. Gotta know your dog and where you're hunting. Here, 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 heel, sit, give. Good boy. So that time, we gave him some verbal encouragement with here, right? I wasn't being too harsh, but I was encouraging him so that he would bring it all the way to me without dropping. He knew what that meant. So that is how we start to make the transition to the water. I'm happy with this. I'm happy with this progression. So now we're ready to, from this point on, we're ready to move into the next part of our hunt test training, I should say our gun dog training, which is preparing for the hunt and preparing for the hunt test.